Back with another video on the E36. Got to get you guys caught up on some stuff because I'll admit, kind of jumped the gun and started knocking stuff out and didn't video it, which I'm pretty bad about doing that when it comes close to the end of a project, just because I'm just trying to get it done. So trying to not do that. So I'm going to get you guys caught up on what we did. We got the ARP studs done. That was a job in itself because I am stud dropping it without pulling the head, and it's really tight between the cams and like the galleys for the cams. So you really gotta, it's really meticulous. It takes a lot of time. So we got that done. So the ARP studs are done. We did get the fuel pump in. So we got the Walbro 485 Rally Road pump in the car. Well, it's not a Rally Road pump, but Rally Road kit. So that's in the car. We just got to wire a relay to it. We got the intake and stuff on. So that's finished up and bolted on. Got the throttle body on. The throttle cable is on. We got to order a new throttle cable because this car was originally a 4-cylinder car. So it does work, but it's kind of a little wonky and I don't trust it. So we went with fuel injector connection on a set of 60-pound, 630cc injectors. The reason I went with these guys is because these are drop-in, ready-to-go injectors. So that's why I went with these. So we're gonna get these put in, and then we'll start running lines. So I ended up pulling the pump back out because I couldn't get it to go all the way in and get the collar to screw down. So I pulled it out initially to figure out why, and ended up looking up a video, and I ran across an RK Tunes video where he is talking about E36 pumps and how to clock them correctly so that when you put them back in, they go down all the way. And in his video, I happened to see that he was talking about how you shouldn't use the factory super thin wires if you're running a pretty big pump. And that's what I did. And he showed how he put these bulkheads up in the top, just bolts. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's what I did. Basically, you want to drill this hole not to be super loose. You want to drill it smaller than what your bolt is, and then thread the bolt through it so that you don't have any issues with fuel leaking, obviously. And then you just put a nut on the backside, and then I stacked a couple nuts just to get the height up, and then I'll have a lock washer there. And then you also want to mark power and ground so that way you know. But yeah, so got everything fixed. The issue I had was I had the pump turned a little bit, so it wasn't sitting all the way down flush in the little like basket in the tank. So yeah, Rally Road 485 Walbro 485 pump going back in. All right, so we got a little bit done since the last clip you guys saw. So the injectors are installed. We got our catch can mounted and all of the catch can lines done. I did forget to put the cam cover in, and so I had to pull the valve cover back off. Got that installed. Got the fuel system completely tidied up, clamped on this side. We still have to tighten up our filter, which is right there. Oh, I guess it's not connected. I thought it was, but that's all done. Everything is routed down to the lines underneath the car. We also got our bulkhead connectors in. These are pretty cool. I had to do some digging to find these. So for those quick disconnects on the firewall, I actually saw a Formula Drift driver's Instagram story. I think he was like showing off his, and I slid up on his story and I said, hey man, where can I buy those? Because I'm kind of like a wiring nerd when it comes to stuff like that. Like, I think that's the coolest thing. And I was like, I need those for my car. I definitely had to change some stuff with the wiring to add them, but definitely was something I wanted. I don't know why. I just think it's cool. But he left me on red, which I thought was pretty lame. I don't get the whole like gatekeeping parts and stuff. It would have took him 2 seconds to just give me a part number, and I'd have been on my way. But it is what it is because I just screenshotted it, zoomed in and then screenshot it again, got the part number off of it, and then bought them anyway. So got those on the car now. I'll show you guys how those work. You literally hit a button, pop them off. It's got a little lock button here. It's nice and watertight, and then you just pop it back on. Same thing with the ground. Same deal. Pops back on. They swivel and move, and then so essentially you spin this collar off right here, and then there's just like a normal crimp piece. You crimp your wires here, spin the collar back on. It's got a nice little rubber thing here, which I'm going to still put a dab of silicone right there just to be safe, and then you're good. They use these a lot on, like, I want to say like really high power stuff, because these connectors can get pretty big. Actually, I have a connector that I didn't use. I'll show you guys. So right here is what it looks like before you obviously mess with it. So this you thread off, and then this is what you crimp the wires into, and then obviously this is your piece that pops off. Right? All right, I got it separated. So this is what goes into the firewall, and then obviously you would attach your power or your ground to the backside here, and then it's got a nice seal, nice rubber seal. So you crimp your wire on here, make sure you slide this onto the wire first, crimp this, and then you just lock this back onto there, and then you're done. Then you have a quick disconnect. Now I will admit, this is definitely something that really doesn't have a real purpose other than it looks cleaner, and when you do pull the engine, you know, hopefully you're not, it is a lot faster. You literally just pop them off. It's more designed for like race cars where they're yanking the engines all the time, and that would make the difference on like a 5-minute call, or, you know, if they're trying to replace an engine before competition or something. Every little thing that takes less time counts. So that's kind of why they use it. I'm using it because I think it looks cool, and I think it is cool, and I'm going to use them on everything now. When I do all the wiring in the dually, best believe it is getting the same thing. I think we talked about this already, but boost controller is mounted there. Did also get our fuel pump relay in. So got the relay mounted here. I would have mounted it with everything else, but I feel like it just made more sense to kind of put it here, and it's all close to the battery. And then all we got to do is run a switch wire up to the key on. And that is fused as well. So we got the fuse pulled out of it right now so that every time we turn the key on, it doesn't run the pump dry. But got all that hooked up. Everything's nice and clean. Once it gets loomed and stuff, it'll be super nice. But that's done. All right. So you'll see it's kind of a mess, but we got our coolant fitting comes off. It's a 6AN to a 1/4-inch barb with a silicone heater hose, and then it routes over and goes to the throttle body ports that are deleted. And then same thing on the other side, another clamp, 90, goes over, and then we have our 4AN oil feed goes to the top, 90's off the top, and then it's the Rally Road bottom mount oil feed line. So that routes all the way over and goes to a adapter fitting on the Vanos line. And then we got our oil drain, which I lengthened a little bit, and it is much better. And that routes up, goes there. Got our wastegate mounted. We got our downpipe that's not completely done yet. I also did get the correct plug in for my valve cover, so that came in finally. I got that threaded in there. I'll have to tighten it up, but it's got a nice copper washer here, and that should delete the crankcase vent that's naturally here, and then it'll obviously all the blow wire will go out into our catch can. So pretty cool, looks clean. So we got our packages in from WireCare. They have a lot of stuff in stock that you wouldn't expect, like fire sleeving. This is aero grade or aircraft grade high temp sleeving from Fireflex. We got some header wrap, which we're going to use on the downpipe, and then we got 1/2-inch wire sleeving, which I get the split stuff so that it's easy to fix any wiring later down the line. I do agree that the non-split stuff definitely looks cleaner, but when you're getting into this small of stuff, it's really not that noticeable. And then we got 100 foot of the same stuff, but in 1/4 inch. So we're going to use a lot of 1/4 inch because of all the mil-spec wiring. It is a very small package. So you got to think all the wiring going to the trunk, all the wiring coming up here, even a lot of the wiring behind the dash is all going to be very small and very small package. That's why I only got 10 foot of this and 100 foot of this, and I can also use this almost anywhere. And then we got 24 inch, it's 24 by 3 foot of the gold foil. We're going to replace the stuff that I do have on the car because this stuff is junk. And then we got, it's out of the package, but we got 1 inch extreme heat sleeving that is split with Velcro. I got this for any of the stuff that I didn't think of or later, add on stuff. Probably going to do the oil drain hose in this, and then probably the coolant hoses up until they get away from the heat. So this stuff is super nice. The material's super nice. I imagine it'll hold up pretty good. So really stoked about this. Wire care has been amazing to work with. Just in general, like from a customer service standpoint, Steve at WireCare has been, phenomenal. I couldn't ask for a better experience, and super, super happy with all of this. Highly, highly suggest anyone to reach out and check out their stuff. They are super fairly priced on a lot of things, like really, really fairly priced in my opinion when it comes to wiring stuff, and even all of your heat sleeving and heat protection stuff. Another thing, we did finish up our expansion tank relocation bracket. Got it nice and painted. Got these holes drilled in it. Got it all trimmed up and stuff. Still got to get some vacuum hose to kind of protect this and tighten it up a little bit. All right. So next on the list was finishing up the wiring on all of the link stuff. So I ran into a little hiccup, which was probably a little bit of like just not knowing on my end what I needed. So I didn't order it when I ordered all my ECU stuff. So if you have a plug and play link ECU, you're running a CAN lambda and a CAN gauge, you're gonna need for one, you're gonna need a CAN connector, which plugs into the CAN signal on the ECU, and it adapts it to basically, which is right here. It adapts it out to this so that you can plug your whatever it is, your CAN gauge or your CAN lambda, straight into it. It needs a power and ground wired to it, just a 12-volt switched power and ground, obviously just the power side. And then, so I didn't have that. I didn't order that. I didn't know I needed it. And then I also didn't know that if you're running the CAN lambda and the CAN gauge, you can order a CAN T, which this basically plugs into there, splits this off into 2 T's so that you can use the same CAN port on the ECU for both of these add-ons. So it eliminates some of the wiring. It eliminates even having to wire this in general. So you can plug it straight into this. You don't have to do the wiring to it. And then the same thing with the CAN gauge. You just plug straight into the CAN gauge and you're done. I did get a fuel pressure sensor. I'm just going to take the mechanical sensor out for now and just put that in its spot. Eventually I will get a port to put it somewhere else on the regulator, but for now that's the plan. And these regulators are they have to be 5-volt signal, which if you have the expansion loom, which you'll need to add all these sensors, this is your 5-volt signal. So you can use 5-volt for that, and then you have to have a signal wire, which it's a digital input. I think I'm using DI8 on the expansion loom, which I think is the gray wire for my signal. And then your sensor ground is the green wire here. So you can split the other sensors into this ground as well. You can utilize this And then I believe you can also use the 5 volt and split it off to other sensors as well if you need it. Could be wrong on that, but as far as I'm aware, that is the case. So as far as the boost controller and how it's triggered, there is a white and yellow striped wire that is no longer used on factory wiring harness. So what I ended up doing was I went and got into the Link software, and I basically just kept triggering on the pins that I thought it would be, and ended up finding it. So it is a ground triggered pin. So I can't remember exactly which one it is. Got that sorted out. Started wiring everything. Got all the sensors wired. This I haven't routed over there yet. I wanted to show you before I routed it over there. So this is all our sensors. So their ethanol content sensor, fuel pressure sensor, and then this is our oil pressure and oil temp combined sensor. I did put a coolant temp sensor in the expansion tank, but there is one factory one in the head, so I didn't wire it. It's just there. I kind of did that, and then I kind of realized that there's really no reason to. So, but if I do need to add it, I have the output for it on the expansion loom, and it would be super easy to wire up if I ever need to, and the sensor's already there. Um, so yeah, all this stuff nice and tidy. All our looming and wire stuff from Wire Care made this all look really, really good. Got our quick disconnects and stuff loomed up as well, and got all that tidied up. It looks so good. So stoked on how it's coming out. Got our boost controller wired, got it loomed. We just cut a little notch in this so it doesn't pinch the wires, and then we put extra coating around it so it doesn't ground to the metal here, obviously. We got our can T this kind of isn't ideal. It's like shoved all in here. There's really no good place to put it, but this will be screwed here, and then our wideband sensor will just plug straight in there, and that will be done. I had Dan get this compressor housing welded up for me, and came out pretty good. Should work out perfectly. Should be clocked about like that. And then I'm gonna put some heat tape and stuff around that so that it doesn't heat soak too bad. And so the goal is to get this on, get all the intercooler piping pretty much squared away. We got the right boot for that now, and we just got to roll some beads on some of the tubing, and that should be done. I need to put a port here for the map sensor, and then I need to put a port here for vacuum. Well, actually, we might be able to steal. Yeah, there's a tube right here we can steal for fuel pressure regulator. But we need boost reference for the fuel pressure regulator, and then we need a port for the map sensor. So we do got to do that. All right, it has been a little bit since the last clip that I filmed, for good reason, and progress has just been slow. So we'll go over everything that we've gotten done. A lot has been done, a lot's changed. So we're going to go over that right now. So for starters, you'll see everything is together. The turbo's on, all of the lines underneath are plumbed. I'll put the clips of that stuff in here. And now that you've seen all of that stuff in, we got all the intercooler piping routed and completely done. We got to put one clamp on here I forgot about, but all the intercooler piping is done. Everything clears. The tires, intercooler's mounted. I already accidentally dented it by dropping it on the jack, but that's besides the point. So all that's done. We got radiator and everything. Our catch can 90s also hit the hood, which I was worried about. So it just barely hits it. You can see the dent right there. I'm going to be putting hood vents in, so I'm hoping that will cause them to clear. I even grinded this down. I'm hoping that we can make it work, but as of right now, that is the issue. We did get our aero catch latches on, obviously picked up a hood. We scored a hood at the junkyard pretty damn cheap, so stoked about that. in here. Still have to loom the chassis harness and all that, which is something I plan on tackling tonight. And this looks crazy, but I promise you it's not as crazy as it looks. So the top this terminal right here, that is the ground quick disconnect, and that goes up to a grounded terminal up here so that you can still connect to a ground for jumper cables, for example, in the engine bay. So I put a post there for ground, and then here's our main, and these look crazy, but we're going to put this all to one terminal right here. This is our main power terminal, which that is also in the engine bay, and then that jumps, I made a jumper that comes up here to the quick power disconnect in the engine bay. So pretty slick. Then obviously our main power feed goes all the way back to our excess power battery, and that is all working really good. On this side, you'll see that we have pretty much the whole car wrapped in the new color with the pink two-tone. Just kind of like the new vibe. Got a little bit tired of the all pink look. Honestly, wasn't a huge fan of the wrap. I hate dull colors. Like this stuff is super glossy, and then this stuff up here, it's just not as glossy, very dull, and the wrap really sucks. It's a really thick wrap, and it really sucks to work with. Doesn't like to stick to anything, so went with the two-tone. I think it's going to look sick. Still need to get a trunk for it, so that's why that's not wrapped. But the upper half of the car is wrapped, and the lower part, other than over fenders, are wrapped, and obviously the hood and front rear bumpers. So all right, so we got the dash out of the car, obviously, and went to work on the wiring harness. Got everything pretty close to where I want it and how it looks. It may look like kind of all over the place, but it is pretty organized. We got this is our cluster wiring, comes up, tees off, and then also the fuel sending unit and wheel speed. Got our wiper, motor, all that stuff tees off. Don't mind these. These will be tied up and stuff once we get the dash back in. So they're all just kind of loosely. This is for the can gauge for the link, and then these two are rock lights. I don't want to tie these in directly to the wiring harness because rock lights do fail. And I would hate to have rock light wiring running through a harness that has to be tore out of the harness. So everything's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. It's not as like wire nest looking as I thought it would be. So here's our fuse box mounted right here, and then all of our wires. Some of this stuff, like I said, still needs to be tidied up, and then all of that obviously will be cleaned up too. But I was originally going to loom this entire harness, but I'm thinking that I'm not going to do that, and I'm just going to loom the stuff that matters. Like this is a wear point right here. Like this harness is going to sit here and rub on this piece of metal, so I'll for sure loom it there just to protect it from wearing through. And then obviously all of the visible parts of the harness will be loomed. Like I loomed this because you'll probably see a little bit of it. This is for the window switches. You'll probably maybe be able to see it through there a little bit. The good news is we're putting pretty much the whole front half of the car back together, so it'll have a full dash, full glove box, and all the kick panels. So you really won't see a whole lot of the harness. Obviously, anything coming out onto the floor will be loomed. And I'm thinking about heat sleeving this stuff if I have enough, because the exhaust runs right here. And I really don't want, actually the exhaust is more over here, so we might be okay. But I just don't want this stuff to melt to the floor. So may even do like a sound deadening or something to keep the heat off of all of that. But so far so good. Really happy with it. like I said. So tidied up a lot of the wiring. Like we didn't completely finish wiring the wiper or the window motors yet. Those were kind of like just tied together just to see what worked and what didn't. So finished all that stuff up. Got our switch panel, like, so that's all nice and neat, comes up perfectly right where we're going to have it. And then the grounds right now, they're all separate on like different ring terminals. I think I'm going to actually cut those and put them to one big ring terminal just because it looks tacky like that. It just doesn't look good. So we'll probably put a bigger ring terminal there and just tie them all into one ring terminal. And then all these grounds and stuff over here, all this, I'll put a grommet in there, so I don't have to worry about fumes from the engine bay somehow leaking in. But that should be sealed, so I might not have to worry about that. But for now, I'm going to actually put the dash back in, probably for the last time, hopefully, and then try and just kind of tie things up and loom stuff that needs to be loomed that is visible from the dash. But for the most part, this is kind of going to be our finished product. This stuff will be zip tied up to the actual dash itself because there's a little piece in there. And then this stuff here will all be zip tied up there with the hydro line. So yeah, really liking it. This is like, it's crazy how little wiring there is here. If you saw the factory BMW stuff, which I'll try to throw up a picture of what a factory behind the dash of a factory E36 looks like compared to this. The other cool thing is, I'll show you guys once we put the dash back in, but having this hidden and then but also really easily accessible is going to be pretty cool too. So